Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 33. Until 6 months ago, I was just the maintenance guy who fixed elevators in a luxury high-rise where residents treated staff like furniture. Then one night, I got called to free a woman stuck between floors. Wealthy, married, untouchable. And when I finally got the doors open, she handed me her cashmere scarf and whispered, "You dropped this," even though we both knew I hadn't. The elevator stopped between floors. She smiled and said, "Looks like we're not rushing anywhere." I still smell machine oil on my hands when I think about the first time her forehead touched my sleeve. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I worked late the night everything started. The basement mechanical room smelled like oil and old metal. My hands were black from checking cable pulleys. The radio on my belt crackled with complaints about Elevator B running slow before the charity weekend. Dylan was shutting down the compressor across the room. He looked over and grinned. "Penthouse people think we're ghosts," he said. "They press buttons and expect magic." I wiped my hands on my work pants. "That's the job." "Yeah, well, your magic's about to get tested. Front desk is calling you." I grabbed the radio. The night manager's voice came through, flat and professional. "Ethan, we have a resident stuck between floors. Elevator B. Can you respond?" My stomach dropped a little. Not because it was dangerous. Elevators don't fall like in movies. But being stuck in a small box makes people panic, and panic makes my job harder. I took my keys, my flashlight, the service tablet. Walked past the security desk where all the camera monitors glowed in rows. Everything in this building got recorded. Every hallway, every elevator, every door. I rode the service elevator up to the floor where B had stopped. The hallway was quiet. Expensive quiet. The kind that comes from thick carpet and people who don't yell. I heard breathing on the other side of the doors. Then a soft laugh. Not panicked, amused. I got down on one knee and spoke through the seam. "Can you hear me?" "Yes." Her voice was calm, almost warm. "I can hear you perfectly." "I'm Ethan. Building maintenance. Are you hurt?" "Not at all." A pause. "Just stuck." I pulled open the panel beside the doors and checked the system. Everything looked normal except the stop switch. Someone had triggered it manually. Residents weren't supposed to touch those. "What's your name?" I asked. "Vivian." I'd seen the name on resident lists. Penthouse floor, married, quiet. "Vivian, I'm going to get you out, but I need you to stay still and keep talking so I know you're okay." "I can do that." Another pause. "What's your name again?" "Ethan." "Ethan," she repeated, like she was testing how it sounded. Orchestrated narrative pacing and structural progression for extended storytelling. Good. Start. I'm establishing the tone, the setting, the initial contact. Now I need to continue through the elevator scene, the title line, and the scarf moment. I'm at about 400 words, so I need to pace this carefully to hit 4,000 words for part 1, covering roughly chapters 1-12. Let me continue with the elevator scene and build the tension naturally. I heard her shoes click against the metal floor, heels coming off. "I'm taking off my shoes," she said, "to steady myself. Is that all right?" "That's smart." I reset the system manually. The car shuddered. She made a small sound but didn't scream. "You're doing great," I said. "Am I?" She laughed again. Soft, private. "Looks like we're not rushing anywhere." Something in my chest tightened. The way she said it. Like she didn't mind being stuck. Like maybe she'd needed a reason to stop moving. I worked faster. Checked the circuits. Bypassed the safety lock. The elevator jolted once, then the hum returned. Doors slid open. She stood there in the low emergency lighting. Mid-40s. Dark hair pinned up, but a few pieces had come loose. Simple black dress. No jewelry except a wedding ring that caught the light. beautiful in a way that didn't need effort. She smoothed her skirt and stepped out, stopped too close to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something expensive and barely there. Then she unwound the cashmere scarf from her neck, cream-colored, soft. One corner was frayed like she'd touched it when she was nervous. "You dropped this," she said. I hadn't dropped anything. She pressed it into my hand. Her fingers were cold. Mine were still dirty from the oil. I stood there holding her scarf while she walked away down the silent hallway. Her heels made soft sounds on the carpet. She didn't look back. My heart was pounding like I'd done something wrong. I came back early the next morning to run a full diagnostic. Everything checked out fine. The stop switch had been released properly. No damage, no reason for the board to worry. I folded the scarf and locked it in my locker like it was contraband. Dylan came in while I was printing the maintenance report. He leaned against the doorframe and watched me. "You look like you didn't sleep." "I slept fine. Marla's been sending emails. She wants reliability assurance before the charity thing this weekend." Marla Kent ran the condo board like a small kingdom. Warm smile, cold eyes. She treated staff like furniture until something went wrong. "I'll send her the report," I said. Dylan studied me. "You sure you're good?" "Just tired." My sister Nina called during lunch. I sat on the service stairs and answered because she'd keep calling until I did. "You sound weird," she said immediately. "I don't sound weird. You sound like trouble. The kind you're bad at hiding." "I'm at work." "Yeah, and you're thinking about something that's got nothing to do with elevators." I didn't answer. Nina had raised me after our parents died. She could read silence better than most people read words. "Be careful," she said quietly. Then hung up. That evening I rode Elevator B alone. Listened to the hum. Replayed Vivian's laugh in my head, the way she'd said my name twice. The next day I started noticing patterns. Who rode when? Who pressed which buttons? Who avoided eye contact with staff and who didn't? Late afternoon I saw her across the lobby. The marble floor made every sound echo. She moved like she didn't want to be noticed, like she was used to being looked at but not seen. She pressed the call button for the elevator bank, then hesitated when she saw me by the service panel. She chose Elevator B instead. A subtle choice. Maybe meaningless. I pretended to check the inspection sticker while she waited. Our eyes met. She smiled, small, private, like a secret handshake. The doors opened. She stepped inside. "Is it running better?" she asked. "Should be." "Good." A pause. "Thank you." The doors closed. I stood there feeling like I'd just failed a test I didn't know I was taking. That night, Marla cornered me near the mailboxes. She had a folder tucked under her arm and that smile that never reached her eyes. "Ethan, do you have a moment?" "Of course." There were some after-hours incidents logged last week, nothing serious, but the board likes to stay informed. "I filed all my reports." "I know. You're very thorough." She tilted her head. "Just making sure we're all on the same page about protocols." I nodded. Stayed professional. But her tone said she was watching. That night at 11:10, I got a message through the building's service request system. Just a resident number and a note. "Elevator B feels slow. Could you check?" I knew the number. Penthouse floor. I read it 3 times. Then scheduled a late inspection for the same night. I put up the maintenance signs at 11:30. Disabled one camera angle by using the standard privacy cover we're supposed to use during repairs. But I knew other cameras still existed, still recorded, still tracked everything. She appeared in the empty lobby at 11:40. No jewelry this time. Hair looser, still elegant but softer somehow. I was kneeling by the service panel when she walked up. "Is it actually slow?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe." She stood near me, but not close enough to be obvious. "I hate being upstairs. It's too quiet." "Quiet's better than loud. Loud is honest. Quiet hides things." I didn't know what to say to that, so I kept working. Checked settings that didn't need checking. "I haven't been sleeping well," she said. "Since my husband left for business, the apartment feels bigger when no one else is there. I sleep badly, too, since my divorce." It just came out. I hadn't planned to share that. She looked at me then. Really looked. "How long ago?" "Year and a half." "Does it still hurt?" "No, not the way you'd think." I closed the panel. "It's more like I forgot I was lonely until I wasn't." The security guard's footsteps echoed from the far hall. Vivian stepped back instantly, became just a resident waiting for an elevator. The guard nodded at me and kept walking. When he was gone, Vivian turned to leave. Then she looked back. "Was it really a malfunction?" she asked softly. "That night?" I froze. She walked away before I could answer. The next morning I checked the elevator log on my tablet. The timestamp from the night she was stuck looked incomplete, like someone had edited it. Dylan mentioned the condo board had been requesting more data lately. For compliance, for standards, for control. I went to the IT closet and confirmed that Marla had admin access to logs. She could see everything. Change everything. And she would. I ran into Vivian by the mailboxes that afternoon. She looked tired. Shadows under her eyes. She leaned close while reaching for her mail and whispered without moving her lips. I didn't panic. Then she was gone again. I went back to my locker after my shift. The scarf was still there, but it wasn't folded the way I'd left it. Someone had been in my locker. I stayed late that evening to find out if someone was testing me. Set up near the service corridor by elevator B, with tools laid out so I'd have a reason to be there. Vivian came through the service door, the one residents weren't supposed to use. She saw me and stopped. "I hit the stop switch on purpose," she said. No preamble, no softness. "That night, I saw it was you on call. I just needed a minute, needed air." "You can't do that." "I know." "Someone could have gotten hurt. Someone could have—" "I know." She took a breath. "I'm not asking you to understand. I'm just telling you the truth." I should have walked away. Should have reported the violation. Should have done my job. Instead, I just stood there. "Can you stay here for 1 minute?" she asked. "Without fixing anything?" I stayed. We didn't touch, didn't speak. Just stood in the fluorescent hum of the service corridor while the building breathed around us. Then footsteps. Marla's voice in the hallway, talking to a neighbor about maintenance issues and resident concerns. Vivian slipped into the stairwell without a sound. I stayed by my tools until Marla passed. The next morning, Marla scheduled a meeting with me. Mandatory. The boardroom had too much light and too many cameras. Marla sat across from me with printed incident summaries. "We need stricter protocols," she said. Her smile was surgical. "No after-hours solo checks unless logged and approved. Full camera review for safety. And a complete audit before the charity weekend." "Understood. We trust our staff, Ethan, but trust requires transparency." I agreed outwardly. Inwardly, I was calculating how many ways I could be caught. Dylan overheard fragments of the conversation and started joking about penthouse drama. Nina visited me after work that night, saw my tension, put coffee in my hands, and said quietly, "Whatever this is, don't let it own you." That night, I got another service request from Vivian. 2 words. Elevator B. I answered immediately, even though I'd told myself I wouldn't. We fell into a rhythm after that. Not a relationship. Not even really a pattern. Just stolen minutes in places where cameras couldn't see clearly, or where we had legitimate reasons to be. Late-night calibrations, scheduled checks, service corridor conversations that lasted 5 minutes and felt like hours. She told me her husband was coming home for the charity weekend, and she was already tired just thinking about it. I told her I hated how much I waited for the sound of her heels on marble. Dylan texted me one night while I was standing near the lobby edge with Vivian. Bored sniffing around. You good? I turned my phone face down. Vivian saw the motion and understood without asking. She left her scarf in the maintenance cart that night. Accidentally on purpose. I didn't return it. The next day my schedule was changed without my input. More daytime, less night work. Someone was adjusting my access. Dylan announced too loudly during the morning briefing that the board was pulling random camera clips for pattern checks. I pulled him aside afterward. Stop talking. About what? About anything. About the board. About penthouse residents. About me. He looked offended, then curious. Man, what's going on? Nothing. Just be quiet. But Dylan wasn't good at quiet, and now he smelled a story. Vivian started avoiding the main elevators, taking stairs, reducing her digital footprint. I noticed her absence like withdrawal. Nina called and invited me to dinner. I went because refusing would have been more suspicious. At her table, I pushed food around my plate and said nothing. Say her name, Nina said quietly. Out loud. I didn't. That bad? It's not bad, it's just complicated. Complicated is code for married. I looked up. Nina sighed. Be smarter than this. But I couldn't be. I was already in too deep. That night there was a storm. Power flickered. Emergency lights glowed in the stairwells. Elevator B went temporarily offline. I went to check the emergency systems and found Vivian sitting on a stair landing like she belonged to the shadows. Couldn't sleep, she said. I sat down 3 steps below her. Not close, but close enough. We shared vending machine coffee from the basement. Too sweet, too hot. The kind you only drink when nothing else exists. I get handled all day, she said. Managed, presented. I'm Graham's wife at events. The board president's friendly neighbor. The woman who remembers everyone's name but no one remembers is lonely. People see you. People see what I let them see. What do you want them to see? She didn't answer for a long time. Just held the coffee cup with both hands, like it was keeping her warm. I want someone to see me standing on a stairwell at midnight drinking bad coffee and not wonder why I'm not upstairs where I belong. You don't belong upstairs. I live there. That's not the same thing. She looked at me then. Really looked. And I saw something crack in her composure. My divorce wasn't loud, I said. It wasn't fighting or cheating or anything movie. It was just slow neglect. We stopped seeing each other, stopped noticing. One day I realized we'd been roommates for 2 years, and I hadn't even felt it happening. That's worse, she whispered. Yeah. Her hand shook as she passed me the cup. Our fingers brushed for half a second. We both pulled back like we'd been burned. The next morning I checked the elevator logs. There were gaps, missing entries, rides that should have existed but didn't. Vivian had been deleting them. Not mine. Hers. I found her in the lobby that evening and spoke quietly. Stop editing the logs. No. It's dangerous. If they find out, then I'll take the risk. Why? Because I'd rather choose my own risk than let this building choose for me. Marla emailed that afternoon, announcing a full access audit starting the next day. She wanted my master keys temporarily for inventory. I had to hand them over. Felt disarmed. Late that evening, I found Vivian in the lobby. She was standing near the elevators without pressing any buttons. Just standing. Like she was waiting for permission to want something. We spoke for 2 minutes, shorter than usual, because the building felt louder somehow, like the walls were leaning in. The next night, I set up a legitimate sensor test inside elevator B. Door held open, tools spread out, everything by the book. Vivian stepped in with me. The space was small. Our breathing filled it. "Graham hasn't touched me in months," she said. Not sad, just factual. Not cruelly, just absence, like I'm furniture. I didn't make promises, didn't offer solutions, just said the only true thing I could. "That sounds lonely." She leaned forward, rested her forehead against my sleeve. One single breath. I didn't move. The elevator hum filled the silence like a confession neither of us could say out loud. Then the doors started to close automatically. I stopped them with my hand. Let them open again. Trembling. Vivian stepped out, face composed, eyes wet. She walked away. I stood there feeling like the air had changed forever. I need to keep the same first-person past tense, simple language, emotional depth, and realistic pacing. The ending should be hopeful, but open-ended, with the recurring Wednesday 2 a.m. routine. The morning audit started with Marla and a technician walking the building with clipboards, checking protocols, checking cameras, checking me. I answered every question, stayed professional, kept my face neutral. Marla casually mentioned Vivian. "Penthouse residents like special treatment. We accommodate when we can." I nodded like it meant nothing. Dylan tried to help by explaining elevator usage patterns. Bees had weird late-night activity, but nothing broken. I shot him a look. He didn't catch it. A neighbor complained about staff lingering after hours. Marla listened with that sympathetic tilt of her head. Fed the culture of suspicion. That evening I opened my locker. Vivian's scarf was gone. Fully gone. I spent the night replaying every moment, wondering if she was ending it, or protecting me, or both. The next morning, Vivian passed me in the lobby without stopping, without smiling. Her face was controlled, almost blank. I tried a safe outreach through the service system. "Is elevator B still feeling slow?" No answer. Dylan told me the board was requesting footage from the night of the storm, specific timestamps. My stomach dropped. Nina texted. "You okay?" I lied. That night I was alone in my apartment, staring at the wall when my phone lit up. Private number, 5 words. "Stop answering if it's me." I read it 3 times, then went to work the next morning anyway because staying still hurt more. The building buzzed with charity weekend setup. Florists, caterers, deliveries, everything expensive and temporary. Graham Harrow arrived mid-morning. Immaculate suit, perfect smile. He shook hands with staff like he was collecting impressions. When he reached me, he paused. "You're Ethan. Maintenance." "Yes, sir." "Thank you for keeping things running smoothly. Vivian mentioned you've been very responsive." His eyes held mine a fraction too long. I couldn't tell if it was paranoia or precision. Vivian appeared beside him like an accessory. Her eyes flicked to me once, quick, apologetic. Then she turned and walked away with her husband's hand on the small of her back. Marla announced the audit would continue through the weekend for guest safety. Cameras felt like spotlights. I sat in my apartment that night staring at my phone, not texting Vivian, obeying her command, hating her for it. The next morning I arrived early to prep the elevators before guests arrived. My locker was slightly ajar. Inside, my tools had been shifted. A folded maintenance form sat on top. Handwritten note. No signature. Just a time. 2 a.m. Dylan admitted he'd borrowed tape last night and might have jiggled the wrong locker. I didn't believe him. Nina called. I almost told her everything. Almost. Then swallowed it. I checked the camera angles near the locker hall. One had been temporarily disabled for the audit. Conveniently. That evening, the charity event began. The building filled with strangers. Laughter bounced off marble. Elevator dings became constant white noise. I worked the floor fixing minor issues, staying visible, playing innocent. Vivian moved among guests like she was hosting a life that wasn't hers. Graham stayed near donors, always performing, always on. Marla patrolled with her clipboard like security. Near midnight, Vivian broke from the crowd and headed toward Elevator B. Then stopped when she saw me watching. She turned away. Chose safety over longing. I felt the loss like a bruise. A small elevator glitch happened around 12:30. Doors hesitated for 3 seconds. Nothing serious, Marla snapped. See? This is why we audit. She stared at me like accusation. After the last guest left, the building quieted into eerie calm. I sat alone in the maintenance office at 1:20 in the morning, staring at resignation templates I'd found online, hands shaking. I decided I'd quit after the weekend. Clean exit, no explosion, no drama. I wrote a draft on paper. Not company email, no digital traces. Dylan came in exhausted and looked at me for a long time. You look like you're about to jump. I'm fine. You're not. But okay. Nina sent a voice note. If you're drowning, call me. I didn't. I walked the silent lobby, looked up at the penthouse floor indicator, felt ridiculous for caring. Then my phone lit up. 2:07 in the morning, unknown number. Porch lights on, service entrance, 5 minutes. My heart hammered. I debated not going. I went anyway. I took the service corridor, stayed in blind spots I'd memorized, timed my route around camera angles. At the service entrance, the small exterior porch light glowed like a signal. Vivian stood partially in shadow, coat tight around her, hair undone. She didn't step closer, just held the scarf. She set it on the bench between us like a peace offering. I'm leaving town alone for a month after the event. No drama, no announcement, just escape. Are you safe? I whispered. Not upstairs. Then she turned and walked away before I could respond. The next morning came fast. I had to act normal in daylight. I was careful. No lingering, no elevator B, no private checks. Marla announced audit results would be presented the next day. Graham was still in town. Seen leaving early for meetings. Vivian was not visible. I wondered if she'd left already. Dylan asked if I was quitting. I denied it. Nina arrived unexpectedly with coffee. I wanted to see your face. She watched me wrap both hands around the cup. This isn't just stress, she said quietly. I finally admitted it. It's someone I shouldn't want. Then stop wanting. I don't know how. Nina squeezed my hand. Then learn, before it costs you everything. That evening I returned for the audit wrap-up meeting, bracing for impact. Marla presented findings with theatrical seriousness, implied after-hours patterns, staff loitering, resident boundary risks. She never named Vivian, but circled the idea like a shark. I stayed calm, stuck to procedures, agreed to continued log access. After the meeting, Marla pulled me aside, alone. Some residents get lonely, she said softly. Don't be the kind of staff member who mistakes that for permission. She suspected something, or wanted me to think she did. I walked home in the humid night air, feeling watched even by streetlights. 1 week later, Tuesday night into Wednesday, I was on shift for a scheduled systems check. Legitimate reason. Logged properly. I rode the service elevator alone at 1:55 in the morning, listening for the hum that started everything. Vivian wasn't there. I told myself she was already gone. I finished the check, closed the panel, paused by the bench near the service entrance where she'd left the scarf. It was empty. I felt foolish and relieved at the same time. As I turned to leave, the porch light flicked on. Slow, deliberate. No message arrived. Vivian didn't appear. I simply waited. Exactly 5 minutes, honoring the ritual without proof. Then I left. Held the door open an extra second before it closed. An act so small it was almost nothing. Yet it hurt. The following week I repeated the routine. Same night, same time. Still no message. Another week later. Wednesday, 2 in the morning. I was on shift again with legitimate paperwork. I finished my check and sat on the bench. The porch light turned on. This time Vivian stepped into the edge of the light. Travel coat, tired eyes, no jewelry, hair pinned like armor again. She didn't come close. Set the scarf beside me, sat with a careful inch of distance. I left town, she said. Came back quieter. Not fixed, just awake. I didn't ask for labels, didn't ask for futures, just asked the only thing that mattered. Do you want me to walk you to the elevator? She nodded. We walked side by side through the silent corridor. At elevator B, she rested her fingers briefly on my forearm. No kiss, no confession, just contact. She stepped inside. I held the door for 1 extra second, then let it close. I rode down alone, hearing the ding like a promise I wasn't allowed to name. I still fix elevators for a living, still do late systems checks, still file reports that Marla reviews with her surgical smile. But every Wednesday at 2 in the morning I ride 1 floor up and let the door stay open an extra second. Sometimes the porch light is on, sometimes it's not. Sometimes Vivian is there with her coat and her careful distance. Sometimes she's not. We don't talk about Graham. Don't talk about futures. Don't make plans that require courage we don't have. We just stand in the space between floors, between what we want and what we're allowed to want. And some weeks that's enough. Some weeks it has to be, because the building still records everything. Marla still watches, Dylan still talks too much, Nina still calls to check on me. But some doors don't close. They learn your name. They wait. And when you're ready, when you're brave enough or broken enough or just tired enough of pretending, they stay cracked just wide enough to let you slip through. Into the quiet, into the hum, into the space where 2 people who shouldn't fit somehow do. For 5 minutes at a time, in a building that never forgets, between floors that never really stopped moving. Some doors don't close, they learn your name.